Hi, my name is Seitu Stevens, and this is a multimedia presentation prepared for HED 760, Current Issues in Higher Education, and Dr. Jordan Cox is the instructor. Today, we will be we'll be addressing the needs of student veterans. This PowerPoint presentation contains facts and literary review extracted from my critical issue summary paper, which also focused on addressing the needs of student veterans. Let's start off with an overview. We're going to discuss four main topics today: importance of the issue, summary of the literature review, 5 best practices for serving student veterans, and then finally, we're going to review some interactive questions to ponder later for online discussion. The importance of the issue. Since the enactment of the post-9/11 GI Bill, colleges have seen a steady increase in student veteran enrollment. As the Afghanistan war veterans continue to come home from deployment, colleges and universities need to prepare for the forecasted rise of student veteran enrollment. Additionally, why this issue is of importance, due to the abuse of federal funding to student veterans, many elected officials and constituency groups are calling for greater transparency and accountability of GI Bill funding to justify the receiving of funds. Let's talk about the summary of the literature review. Gilbert was a study that introduced the Environmental Evaluation for Veterans Index, EEVI. EEVI was designed to provide policymakers, colleges, and universities with tools to measure their ability to provide access to services for student veterans. The EEVI has become an established best practice that can be compared to other best practices to identify gaps in college and university delivery message. Basically, it works as a survey where colleges self-assess their preparedness to handle the issues that student veterans have to deal with. Another study was focused on a focus group that posited that student veterans were pleased with college administrative services, but displeased with the bureaucracy of processing their GI Bill via the Veterans Administration. The Gonzalez study is of importance to future research because it lays out a template on the processes necessary to conduct a thorough and impactful focus group, interpret the data, and offer recommendations based on the data interpretation. Morse concluded that military-connected undergraduates are just not one block of student veterans, that, however, you can break them down into 4 specific sub-demographics. The National Guard. These may be students who may, in terms of a natural disaster, be called upon right in the middle of the semester to handle the situation, or they may already have pre-scheduled weekend or week-long trainings that faculty and staff need to be conscious of. Reserves may be students who are called routinely to go serve deployments. Also, they may be used in cases of national emergencies or large natural catastrophe. Kirshner-Coriel-Susan examined collaborations between the University of Milwaukee and veteran advocacy groups such as the Student Veterans of America to create their Military and Veterans Resource Center. What was really vital about this piece of literature is that it really shed light on the importance of developing strong community relationships with veteran agency groups like the Student Veterans of America. A sidebar note: if your college does not have a Student Veterans of America organization or chapter on its campus, and your college does serve a large number of student veterans, it is imperative to start this group in order that your veteran students have an additional resource to vent to and to seek assistance and to seek additional resources to aid them in their learning experience. So, summary of the literature review. What does the literature review have in common? Well, I extracted from the literature 5 salient best practices that all colleges and universities should implement in order to better assist student veterans. I'm going to list them in brief, and then we're going to go over them individually. First, pursue a multifaceted recruitment strategy system. Don't rely on one strategy system to recruit student veterans. It's a collaboration and an organizational web of resources that will assist your college or university into attracting a strong student veteran presence. 2, tapping into the veteran workforce for staffing needs. Especially when you're dealing with programming that concerns student veterans. They are more receptive if these programs are staffed and headed by veterans themselves. 3, raising the veterans' IQ for faculty and staff. Now, what does that mean? Well, basically, is your college or university staff adequately equipped to handle the needs of student veterans? Do they know the intricacies and the procedures of the GI Bill or Chapter 31 disability funding? Are they aware of the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury and how this may affect the veteran? Are they aware of instituting trigger warnings in their class if their instructor is about to go over some material that's graphically violent in nature? 4, gathering and tracking data to measure the effectiveness of programming. What I gleaned from the review of literature is that this is a new field of research, and most of the studies concluded that more research is still needed in the field. Some studies said their results were inclusive because of this. So, not only does a college or university does a service to their own institution by gathering and tracking data to measure the effectiveness of student veteran programming, but they're helping out the larger scope in the larger world in terms of higher education as well, because more data is desperately needed. And number 5, planning for the future, constantly inquiring with employers and industries. The thing is, our military veterans have literally the best training ever developed in human history, bar none. Most employers and industries would love to employ these veterans. However, there are some gaps where their training ends and civilian and professional soft and hard skill sets are needed. So it behooves a university or college to constantly be in an engagement with employers and industries to see what these skill sets are. Now, let's look at these 5 best practices for serving student veterans in greater detail. When it comes to pursuing a multifaceted recruitment strategy, 2 organizations that colleges and universities absolutely have to have in their corner. It's the Veterans Administration and the Student Veterans of America. There are other local veteran advocacy organizations as well. Oftentimes, community Rotary clubs, your local VFW, Masonic, fraternal, and social fellowships also have a focus on serving the needs of veterans. Tapping into the veteran workforce for staffing and teaching needs. Student veteran programming that's anchored by the employment of veterans is essential. First of all, it shows that the school really not only cares about educating student veterans, but is actively involved in employing veterans as well. Secondly, the relationship that happens between two veterans. There's a bond there that often is very hard to replicate with a veteran and civilian. Raising the veterans' IQ of faculty and staff. Are the faculty and staff at your college or university equipped to handle the flow of student veterans from the Afghanistan war, the rise of veteran enrollment that American colleges need to brace and prepare for? Do they know what trigger warnings are? Do the staff in your bursar and registrar office know how to process post 9/11 GI bills? They need to. It's very frustrating for veterans when they encounter faculty and staff and they're not conscious or they're not informed of their specific needs. Gathering and tracking the data to measure the effectiveness of programs. As previously stated, the post 9/11 GI Bill is a brave new world, and there's still a lot of data to collect, to interpret, and to implement. Colleges and universities will do themselves a great service by starting now, if they have not started, to effectively start to label student veterans and track their progress and come up with variables to track their progress on and against. Planning for the future, constantly inquiring with employees and industries. The student veteran is always changing war after war, generation after generation. The pre-Vietnam era veteran had his difference from the Vietnam era veteran, who had their differences from the Iraq war veteran, who have their differences from the Afghanistan and Iraq II veteran population. There's a constant effort to track these personalities. There's a constant effort to always inquire with employers and industries on what skill sets, what specific training they need these student veterans to have. So when they enter the workforce, they're already prepared. So here are some questions that we're going to ponder for the online discussion. There's 3 of them. I want you to select one of the following writing prompts to participate in our online dialogue. Number 1, out of the 5 best practices covered, identify one and elaborate on how your college and or university can implement or enhance it. Number 2, what is your college, university's level of commitment to serving the needs of student veterans? Number 3, what trainings and or resources are available to faculty and staff at your college or university to raise their student veteran IQ? What follows in the slide are my references. I look forward to connecting and interacting with you on our online discussion panel on this subject. And additionally, it was great being in class with you as well. I learned a lot from your comments and your postings throughout this whole course. Thank you for listening to my presentation.